Do you have what it takes? There are plenty of reasons to become a freelancer. You can be your own boss, have the lifestyle you've always wanted, along with the prospect of making it to the influencer level and eventually becoming financially independent. While it's great to have a vision and something that gets you up in the morning, it's essential to be aware of your expertise and have a specific niche where clients find it valuable to pay for your knowledge and skill set. If you're unsure, don't be afraid to try anyway. You have very little to lose and a lot to gain. Don't put yourself under unnecessary pressure by leaving your job while you're not confident your solo enterprise can financially support you. Other than that, go for it. Clearly define your expertise and services. You must describe your services clearly enough for your target audience to understand what they can expect. Avoid characterizing them with a simple general statement. For example, I can help with marketing. But pick a specific industry area: branding, messaging, SEO. If you're into multiple industries or areas, list them individually. Don't forget to include your whole skill set. Any certifications, licenses, or specialized training can also significantly increase your chances of attracting clients. Keep in mind, there may be things that you can do that appear so natural to you that you won't even consider mentioning them or using them to your advantage. Find your target audience. Look at industries where your potential clients are and evaluate how your skill set fits into it. Consider how realistic it is that they will be open to working with you. You can also segment your target audience by size. So individual, small company, mid-sized company, or a big company. You can segment by specialization or some other attribute relevant to your industry that sets one group apart and gives you an edge. You may even discover an underserved niche where you can more easily step in and fill the need. Consider the geographic locations you'll focus on too. Depending on your specialization, it can be only your city, county/local area, state/region, country, a set of countries, or the whole world. Some clients only want to work with locals or at least prefer that option, even if it means declining more experienced people who aren't nearby. Keep in mind, if you're not a recognized expert in your industry with a demonstrated history and accomplishments, clients from different countries may find you untrustworthy or too risky to work with, and it's likely that they can find someone like you locally. Online versus in person. Consider the form of your sessions. Can you meet with your clients in person? If so, will this be your preferred form, or will you use it for the initial or important sessions and handle the rest online? Or are you going to be fully remote? Although online meetings are becoming more common, certain industries or assignments still require at least an initial in-person meeting. If it's a long-term cooperation, in-person meetings are common every few weeks or months. Your ability to attend meetings in person will also largely depend on the size of the geographical area you want to cover. The more frequent and essential in-person meetings are in your industry, the more likely you may want to look for clients close to you. Alternatively, you have to be okay with a lot of traveling and have paying for it figured out too. Keep in mind, going to in-person meetings will cost you time and traveling expenses. If you're meeting in a restaurant or a cafe, you'll be paying for that too. Consider whether your hourly rate or other form of billing will compensate for all these or whether your client is willing to cover them. You will have to use your prudence to evaluate whether it's reasonable to ask or demand this. Competition research. Before you start thinking about how exactly to present and market yourself, it's a good practice to look around you. Find people who offer what you want to provide in the geographic area of your choice. The closer to your level they are, the better. Notice the message and skills they're trying to put forward, the niches they cover, the scope and quality of their online presence, and their type of clients. Some industries are more crowded than others. If you see that your preferred one already has too much competition and you will likely have difficulty standing out, try to narrow down your specialization or find an angle that will set you apart from others. Checking out your competitors and their online presence can show you what the norm is, what they are lacking, and what you can do better, and perhaps even help you figure out a way to differentiate yourself. The following isn't legal advice. If in doubt, consult a lawyer. Is it legal? Standard employment contracts don't include any clauses about the employee agreeing not to do any other for-profit activities outside the employment. Making money outside your main job isn't prohibited. but you probably agreed to some limits on what you can do. What most employment contracts do contain is a clause about you not commercially using information obtained while employed, not working or collaborating with the competition, and even a non-compete clause that prohibits you from entering the industry for a certain period, usually 1 or 2 years after you end your employment. IP you produce during your employment. The employment contract clause to be extremely careful about is the one that states that the employer will own all intellectual property you produce during your employment, whether at work or on your own time. Your employer owning the IP produced while you're at work is logical and standard practice, but owning the IP you create in your free time, that's unusual in most industries. If this is the case, you must carefully consider your next steps. Suppose you build an influencer profile with tons of content and tens of thousands of followers while employed and tied by a contract with this clause. It's very likely your employer can easily claim ownership of your profile, including all the content you produce. If your freelance activities won't involve the production of intellectual property, but will be mainly consultation-based, you should be all right. Real world scenarios. We'll examine a few fictional scenarios to make it easier to understand. Your situation is very likely to fall into one of them. Scenario 1. You work as a marketing specialist for a car dealership, and on the side, you want to start consulting for beverage brands. Even though you'll be filling the same role in both companies, you're consulting outside the industry you're employed in. There's no danger in using the corporate secrets from your main job in your freelance activities. This is all right. Scenario 2, you're a therapist at a mental health company helping clients with their issues. You want to start doing therapy on the side as well. This can work, but be careful. Don't take on clients you've worked with in your primary job. Also, ideally avoid clients from the geographic area your employer focuses on. Otherwise, you may breach your employment contract. If you can, do the therapy online and get clients who won't be considered potential clients of your employer. Scenario 3, you work for a chemical company as a researcher, and on the side, you want to start consulting for other chemical companies. This is a no-no. Your consulting roles will be in the same industry as your main job, and you will likely use the information and know-how from it in your consulting gig. You will undoubtedly be a desirable candidate for consulting, but you'll be putting yourself in danger. It doesn't matter whether the two companies are direct competitors or not. Scenario 4. You work as a car salesman for a local BMW dealership, but on the side, you want to become a security consultant. You get a call from a Mercedes dealership about reviewing their new security system. This is a case where you'd work for your employee's competitor, but on a matter completely unrelated to your primary job. If your employment contract contains a non-compete clause, it's unlikely to distinguish between the types of work you are not allowed to do for a competitor in a given industry. Keep in mind, the lines between what's legal and isn't can get blurry. If you get sued, your employee's lawyers can tell a very plausible story even if you did nothing wrong. Just because something isn't illegal, it doesn't mean it can't get you in trouble. What if the employer finds out? Even if you break a non-compete clause but don't work in a high-profile industry or have access to precious information, it's unlikely your employer will pursue legal action if you get exposed. On the other hand, it makes it very easy for him to fire you. Our recommendation is to avoid any risky endeavors and only conduct your freelance activities in a way that will allow you to look your employer in the eye if he finds out about it. In some environments, it's normal to have side gigs. In others, not so much. Even if the side gig is perfectly legal and ethical, some bosses and coworkers may still have a problem with it. If that's the case, keep it secret, but be prepared it can be discovered anytime. Yes, it sounds dramatic, but it can make for a very uncomfortable situation, and how you handle it can define your future in a given job. So imagine the cat's out of the bag. Your employer finds out about your freelancing endeavors, calls you in their office, sits you down, and asks for an explanation. What do you say? Here are some tips. When you're confronted, don't lie, don't look surprised, and don't panic. Act like it's completely normal and simply tell your boss what you do. Don't make it look like an interrogation where you try to answer the questions with the fewest words possible. Don't mention the number of hours if you don't have to. If you do, give a broad range, like it depends, 30 to 60 hours a month. Reassure the boss that you never did anything that harmed the company. that your freelancing is entirely unrelated to your job and that you're doing it in your free time. Then pick a few talking points from this list. We're all here for you 8 hours a day and do what you tell us to do. Before and after that, we can do what we want. Some spend time with their family, some play football, some get drunk, and others do what they like to do too. You like, insert here the nature of your side gig. Number 2, you want to become the best at what you do. And doing it for a different company or people gives you an opportunity to face new challenges, improve your skills, and grow professionally. Number 3, the economy is bad. You're struggling financially and need some extra money. And number 4, if you drop your freelance activities, your job performance won't change anyway. Keep in mind, if you are doing your work, your boss has no good reason to fire you. Part-time job. If having a full-time job while pursuing your freelance dream sounds like too much, but you still want some guaranteed income, consider downgrading your full-time employment to do a part-time role. You can do it in your current job or find a new one that will best align with your freelancing. Look for positions that will give you the most time and flexibility. Legal and accounting. The following isn't legal or tax advice. If in doubt, consult a lawyer or tax consultant. Each country has different laws and principles. What is the norm in one country may be a problem in another. Rather than providing specific advice, we want to mention basic principles and some points you may want to consider. Company versus sole proprietorship. All business activities have to be conducted under some legal form. Generally speaking, you can establish a sole proprietorship or start a company. All business activities have to be conducted under some legal form. Generally speaking, you can establish a sole proprietorship or start a company. Depending on your country, each can have multiple forms, follow different rules, and have various obligations, advantages, and disadvantages. Without diving into the differences between sole proprietorships and companies, which again are different in every country, we want to mention liability briefly. In general, sole proprietorships are fully liable for all losses they incur. On the other hand, companies usually have limited liability. Only the company's assets are at risk, while the assets of the company owners are protected. This principle is especially important if you cause substantial damage to your client. If you're a sole proprietor, every single asset you own, like a house or a car, can be taken from you to compensate for the losses incurred by the damage. From this point of view, operating as a company is much safer. In the end, you have to consider the nature of your business and how much you're exposed to causing substantial damages or incurring significant losses. In some countries, you can get started without establishing a sole proprietorship or a company, but it's usually connected to the income limits you can't overcome. If you are employed, the income from your job likely puts you above the limit. We recommend learning how all of this works in your country and what your options are. Even if you can start without a sole proprietorship or a company, it's knowing what legal form you'll transition to down the road and when it's time to do it. Keep in mind, in legal matters, don't follow advice from people outside your country. It doesn't apply to you. Find a reputable domestic source instead. Client contracts. You may work in a field where a contract often formalizes the activities. If your client wants you to sign one, always read it carefully. Be wary of any unusual clauses, delayed payment terms, or penalties. One of the reasons the client may want your signature is a clause saying they're the owner of all intellectual property that you produce for them. As we mentioned in lesson 2, ensure the contract doesn't say that the client owns all IP you create during the contract. If you operate under your own company, ensure you're entering into a contract as a company, not a person. If you sign a contract before you had a company, the contract is tied to you personally, and you are personally liable for the damages, even after you establish a company. In that case, inform the client that you'd like to update the contract and change the contract party from you to your company. Being employed usually comes with having your health insurance, saving for retirement, like a pension plan, or sometimes mandatory, payments specific to your country handled or paid for by your employer. When you are on your own, this responsibility or option usually falls on you. In some countries, you can operate as a company with no employees. If you choose that route, learn what it means in connection to the aforementioned benefits and responsibilities. Accounting. The extent of your accounting obligation is defined by the legal form you're operating under. You'll likely need to find an accountant to keep an eye on it. Find out how complex or frequent these obligations are. There's a chance you won't have to pay the accountant every month, but only send them invoices at the end of the year. When you find an accountant, ask everything you need to know and whether what we just mentioned is possible. Depending on your country, the accountant who did your accounting may also be able to file your tax return. If you're employed, there's a chance that your employer's accountant will have to be informed about your side income. What usually makes things complicated and requires involving the accountant or tax advisor are invoices to and from other countries. If you want to keep it simple, you may have to stick to domestic clients. If you operate under a company, you can pay for trivial expenses from abroad using your personal bank account, which avoids involving your company and consequently your tax advisor. Keep in mind, not operating as either a company or sole proprietor doesn't exclude you from reporting your income and filing a tax return. Your hourly rate. How much can you ask for? Monetarily appreciating your work is always a fun exercise. If you can't entirely depend on your judgment, there is a simple rule consultants use to set their hourly rate. They take the hourly rate they used to have as employees and multiply it by a number between 2 and 3. If you weren't employed, take the average rate from the salaried positions that best reflect your expertise and experience. The difference between the salaried and consultant's hourly rate covers everything the employer used to cover, including administrative work and taxes. If your sessions are shorter or longer than a full hour, you can opt for per session pricing, where you will set the price for the whole session, not for the hour. It's also helpful to research and see how much your competing freelancers charge. Trying to undercut others price-wise may not be as beneficial as you think, especially if you have corporate clients or even individuals who aren't very price sensitive. Paying a little extra isn't a big deal if it means that they get a much better service. Ultimately, it will all come down to the value you provide your clients. If you'll be working on more short-term projects, you don't have to worry too much about setting the wrong price. Experiment a little and you'll very soon find out the highest amount your clients are comfortable with. Fortunately, a price set too low has a nice self-correcting mechanism. You'll get a sense that clients are perhaps too eager to choose you and they'll give you more work than you can handle. Be more careful if you're about to work on a more significant project. If you realize later that the hourly rate you asked for is vastly inadequate, you may become resentful of the client and the project itself, which will certainly affect your performance. Most clients won't be happy if you come to them during the project and ask for a raise. Keep in mind, your price will also reflect the clients you'll attract. Overly price-sensitive clients are known to be the most demanding, even if they pay you the bare minimum. Clients from wealthier areas. If you plan to work for clients from areas, states, or countries more affluent than yours, you will likely be able to charge them more. The first question you have to ask yourself is whether they want to hire you because of your expertise or to save money. It may be a combination of both, and you have to sense how much one motivation dominates over the other. Some freelancers make the mistake of charging clients from more well-off areas the price that they would pay for an equivalent service in their home country. The problem is that if they wanted to pay this price, they would hire someone local, unless they want you mainly for your expertise. Not all clients and projects are the same. You don't have to charge all the clients the same. After a while, you'll see that clients sort of fall into a few categories. Some will be bigger, some smaller, some very budget orientated, and others more orientated on quality. Your price can also vary depending on the difficulty of the project. Session packages. You can also offer session packages with tiered bulk discount pricing. For example, for one session, it could be $50, for 5 sessions, $230, or 10 sessions, $450. You don't have to start with your desired rate for one session and then discount the others. You can do it the other way around too. The client will get that rate only when they buy the biggest package. In our example above, it's $45 per session. Otherwise, they'll pay extra per session in smaller packages. Selling the session package is a preferable option because it will help you quickly fill up your calendar. It's also much easier to work with 5 clients per week instead of 10 clients per week. What exactly will you bill? Some sessions may require significant preparation on your part. While the initial research to understand the client and an exploratory session to see whether you're a great fit is usually free, you must be careful not to unintentionally work for free beyond that. There are 2 ways to approach this. You can track and charge the time you work outside the session, or you can set your session price at a multiple of your basic session price. For example, by default, you charge $50, but for the sessions that require extra work, you can charge $150. Keep in mind, don't corner yourself by labeling some work as nothing and suggesting you won't charge for it. There's a chance that the client will expand their requirements and the nothings will add up, or it will take you longer than expected. Managing expectations and upselling. Always describe the nature of your sessions in a way that gives clients a proper and complete understanding of what to expect. If you are aware of some terms in your industry under which different people imagine different things, address them and specify what exactly you provide. Naturally, topics and things come up during the sessions that were not specified beforehand, and the client may want you to handle them, or you can offer it yourself. Don't forget to make sure that the client is aware of the cost. If you have a creator store on Freelancer, you can add these extra services to your offering. Be careful about this upselling though. You don't want to sound like a low-cost airline that provides basic service for cheap and then jumps at every opportunity to sell something extra separately. Time off. We left this section for the end because it partly overlaps with the next lesson's topic. Not being employed also means no paid time off. You'll have significant flexibility in choosing when and how much time off you want. The only limit will be how much you can afford. If you'll be living paycheck to paycheck and would like to take an entire week or two off, it can make a big hole in your next month's budget. That's why your hourly rate should also account for any time you'd like to spend away from work. Time management. Freelancer trap, always working. Building your own thing feels very rewarding, and you can find yourself counting your working hours much more freely than you used to back in your employee days. Ultimately, you're doing it all for yourself, not your employer. This is a common trap freelancers fall into. Simply put, they are overworked and have very bad work-life balance. It's made even more attractive by another feature of freelance life, working from home. Having the flexibility of deciding when to do the work is a privilege that can easily become a curse. Freelancers who fall into it usually have a common denominator, splitting the work. It looks something like this. 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., you're working. 10 a.m. to 11, personal stuff. 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., work. 12:30 p.m. to 2 p.m., personal stuff. 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., work. 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., personal stuff, and then 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., more work. The problem is that most people can only partially switch off from work during their personal time between these work stints. So instead of working 8 hours, it's not too much of a stretch to say that they were working, or at least being in the working mode, for 11.5 hours. The line between personal life and work can get very thin and become non-existent. Employees with office jobs are well protected from this. When they're done for the day, they're done. Constantly stopping and restarting your work also means your focus is all over the place, and it's very easy to get distracted. Everybody knows it takes a while to fully immerse yourself in the work. When you have to do that 4 times a day instead of 1 or 2, it takes all its toll on your productivity. Working 3 hours straight is much better than working 3 times for an hour with some break. Aim for 1 break if you don't want to go for 8 hours without stopping, but we don't recommend going beyond that. Keep in mind, everybody is different and some people will thrive on this schedule. We just want to point out the risk. Managing your bookings. Try to establish some kind of structure for your workday and work week as soon as possible. It will help you keep your work organized, efficiently use your time, and plan your life outside of work. We recommend using Freelancer to manage your bookings. Our service lets clients book sessions during available time slots or use your preferred online calendar. Session packages are integrated too. Freelancer will count the number of sessions each client has left from the purchase package. It's a much better solution than going back and forth with each client about the time and date of every session. Keep in mind, the more repeat sessions you have, the more stable your calendar structure will be. These sessions can be scheduled for the same time every week. Acquiring clients and building your brand. Not all the work that you do will be billable, though as a freelancer, you will likely have to spend some time acquiring clients and building your brand. This is especially true at the beginning of your career. Later on, you may have a client base large enough to fill a good part of your calendar. Referrals they will send your way will fill the other part, and a reputation will help you fill out about the rest. Depending on your expertise, industry, and especially ambition, you can then be content with where you are or keep going for more attractive clients and projects. For the long-term point of view, it's much more beneficial to build your brand rather than depending on active outreach to gain clients. The strength of your brand and your content will work for you day and night, while reaching out to potential clients requires a lot of time and has very limited long-term benefits. A competitive industry and no reputation can force you to spend most of your time building your brand and doing client acquisition early on. The ratio should start shifting more towards the build work as you progress. Once you get the ball rolling, new clients will come from word of mouth and positive references from your former clients. We'll cover this more closely in the following lessons, along with tips on what to do instead of cold calling yourself to death. Keep in mind, if you'd like to become an influencer or establish passive income streams, building your personal brand and social media presence will be necessary even if you can get clients without it. Administration. Some things will have to be handled by your accountant or lawyer, but you still have to take care of more trivial daily tasks, which can become very time-consuming if you approach them incorrectly. The golden rule here is to keep everything organized and ideally in one place. As you'll start having more clients in sessions, it can easily become a mess. We've already mentioned that Freelancing can help you automate the booking process. It can automate and simplify your administrative tasks too. Instead of manually looking up how much time you spent with each client and filling in the client's invoicing details, invoice by invoice, you can generate and send the invoices with a few clicks and then manage their statuses. Freelancing will also give you a beautiful overview of your freelance business performance. Online sessions. If you'll hold your sessions online, ensure you have all the technical stuff set up and working. A stable internet connection is crucial. If you can't depend on your Wi-Fi, you can use cellular data from your phone. A quality webcam and a good mic are a must. Higher-end laptops have them by default, but they're also affordable options, even if you have to buy them separately. Choose a backdrop without distracting elements. Your clothes, hanger, or kids running around in the background will not look professional. Place the camera at your eye level so you're not literally looking down at the client. Never have your camera facing the window. To compensate for the harsh light from it during the day, the camera will underexpose the scene and make you darker. At night, the window will reflect on your room. In-person session. As we mentioned in lesson 1, the best option for in-person sessions is to have your own office if it's possible and financially feasible. Otherwise, you will either be invited to visit the client or have to depend on co-working or public spaces like cafes or restaurants. For the last option, choose a calm spot with enough space, especially if you'll be using laptops, and privacy to talk without interruption. If it's busy, make a reservation in advance or have a nearby backup location. Session structure. You don't want to go to a session without a precise idea of how it's going to unfold. If this is your first time, try to find some online real-world examples of what a session in your industry should look like, or at least some tips from established professionals on how to approach it. Reserve specific time for all necessary points you want to discuss and get through. Divide your session into multiple parts. Make a bullet point list of everything you want to cover and read it aloud at the beginning of the session. If there's a set of questions you always ask, place them where they belong within the session. When you want to move to the next part during the session, always ask the client. If they forget to mention something, it will be a nice reminder that now's the time. If possible, find out beforehand how flexible the client is with the number of sessions. Rather than fixing on a specific number, agree on a range that you are both comfortable with. This will help you avoid the awkwardness of asking the client whether they want an extra hour every time you stumble upon something unexpected that would make you go over the limit. Keeping the session on track. Depending on your industry and the nature of the session and their number, the pressure to stick to a timetable may vary. In any case, it's important to keep the session what it should be. Recognize recognize when it's starting to get off the rails and not be afraid to intervene. We're working with the presumption that your client wants to get what they want from you in the shortest time, lowest number of billable hours possible, and that you want to fulfill the client's expectations and don't needlessly prolong the sessions. To help you know what exactly to look out for, here are a couple of ways your session can go off the script. For one, a talkative client. Some people like to talk. That's not a problem in general, but it may be for you if a representative of this group happens to be your client. There's no problem for them to spend 10 minutes describing a thing that can be summed up in 2 minutes without any loss of context. Take a couple of these and your session is up without you having a chance to speak. We recommend gently interrupting this type of client the very second you are confident that you know what they want to say and finish the whole point yourself with a question mark at the end, so they know you want them to confirm you got it right. If you aren't correct, the client will usually quickly tell you where you are wrong. Going off topic. When you recognize the topic of the conversation is getting into something else than you both originally intended, say and repeat the original topic of the session and describe it in a way that excludes the off-topic topic from your further conversation, focusing on unnecessary details. A common newbie mistake is to be so ready and willing to help your client that you zoom into every single detail they mention and try to offer your input. Unless that's the objective of your session, you will never get to the big picture. Or if you do, it will take a lot more time than you probably have allocated. A common newbie mistake is to be so ready and willing to help your client that you zoom into every single detail they mention and try to offer your input. Unless that's the objective of your session, you will never get to the big picture. Or if you do, it will take a lot more time than you probably allocated. Even if the reason your sessions didn't deliver the client what they wanted and it's on the client themselves, they will rarely be self-aware enough to acknowledge it. It's not about keeping the number and the duration of sessions as low as possible. We just want you to be ready to recognize when you or the client is unintentionally sabotaging the sessions. If the client knows that one of the things mentioned above is happening and they're okay with it, everything is fine. Keep in mind, some clients just want someone to talk to and don't mind paying extra hours if they see that they have an engaged listener. It's on you to recognize the ones that fall into this category. The shorter the number of sessions and their duration, the more apparent any inefficiencies will be.